Here we are on Mentor Time. So thanks very much for joining. And for today, we're just really going to be dealing with the topic of the week, which is a personal mission statement. And so personal mission statement, it's an idea that I dealt with some time ago, and I was asked to investigate it with a person, because I was exposed to it sometime in the mid-90s, this idea of a personal mission statement. And then as I was working with some young professionals, it became apparent that this could be used for other people. And so that's what got me involved in doing it. So what is a personal mission statement? The idea behind it is that it's an empowering personal statement of values and motivations. And the value of having one is it helps establish some boundaries, and it guides your personal focus on how to impact the world. And in this case also, it's a burning and passionate yes, meaning this describes me. Yes, this is who I am. And it's a unique expression, expression of unique capacity to contribute to the world. Now, the idea behind a mission statement is it comes actually from the military, is the idea of establishing a mission. Businesses have been using it for some time. And the idea here is to create a mission statement around your professional activities and establishing a mission around your professional capacity and capability. And the source that I have used most exclusively is with Stephen Covey, and here's a quote from him: "Is creating and integrating an empowering personal mission statement is one of the most important investments we can make." Now, he's saying that because he wrote a book, and this is included in it. And this is, in fact, where I first encountered it, was through Stephen Covey. Now, there is a Franklin Covey organization exists. And if you saw the attachments to the email concerning today's session, there's a PDF file attached to it, and it's a much more complete description of what the process is. And it has web links and links to a book. The web link, actually, I checked out again just to make sure, and it's been changed slightly. And if you follow that web link in the workbook, it will take you to the Franklin Covey webpage, and then you can drill down one level and you'll find an activity on the personal mission statement. And if you are interested, they can walk you through a set of tools, online tools, and they approach it a little bit differently than what I'm doing here. I'm trying to do it from a much more simple perspective. So the purpose of having a personal mission statement is it can guide career choices. And Sue often says, always be looking. And this is actually why I ended up coming up with this idea for working with young professionals. I was working with an individual who had kind of two career paths in front of them, and they wanted to figure out which way should they go. And for that particular individual, there was an opportunity to look at it and say, okay, well, here, let's have a look at what your preferences are and what your values are and so on, and examine it through a personal mission. And that helped clarify for this individual, by establishing a personal mission statement, helped clarify the direction that this person wanted to go. This is an important aspect of what a personal mission statement is. It's a dream of the future. And it's focusing on this dream can help it come true. And originally, the idea in the Stephen Covey's book was, can you imagine you've died? Now, that's not a very pleasant place to begin, but the idea was to look at the fact that at the time of your death, somebody's going to get up and speak about you. And what would you like to hear them say if you were able to hear them? Now, I found that a little bit unpleasant to think of it that way, but rather a better way to look at it is think, say, 10 or 15 years into the future, and focusing on what you would like people to say. What would I be like? What would my situation be like in 10 or 15 years? And that makes it easier, it's more realistic. And it also emphasizes the idea that as we go through our lives, our mission might change as we go through stages of our life. And this is a famous saying, and I tried to find out who the author is, and I don't really know. So if you don't know where you're going, how will you know that you have arrived? And Stephen Covey has a version of that, which is, if the ladder is not leaning against the right wall, every step we take just gets us to the wrong place faster. So with the idea of having a personal mission statement, we can make sure that the ladder we're trying to climb is up against the right wall for you. And so this idea of dreaming about the future, it's affected really by what we see and how we see ourselves and how we think other people see us. And so in this particular image, we have different images of ourselves. And so we see in the case of the cat, this cat obviously has, well, according to this image, an inflated view of who they are. And the dog, meanwhile, has the image that the dog is seeing in the mirror is something much smaller, and so is not seeing it. And neither one of these views is necessarily right, but perhaps that is how you see yourself, one way or another. And so some of the challenges is how real and how valid is it how we see ourselves. And an idea around that is to, well, how do other people see us? Because other people see us from a different perspective. And while it's a reflection in the mirror, it's a reflection based on who these other people are, what roles they have in your life, etc. And so other people see us in a certain way. And then like Sue and I, when we're talking to young professionals about helping to describe the work you've done and how you've accomplished something in your life, ultimately we're looking at it from the perspective of a third person saying, well, what did that third person say about how good you did your job? And how do you know? I don't believe you. And so this is a reflection ultimately based on how valuable it was to the organization. So that's a little bit about what this is about. And then the third aspect of this is looking at ourselves with some kind of an authentic way, transparent and believable. So when you look at it, if you can understand yourself from the perspective of your own perspective in the mirror, plus how other people actually see you, and perhaps merging those ideas together, we get an honest or a more authentic view of ourselves. And if we say, well, how do you think I did? When we ask questions like that, it is trying to find out how the other person sees whatever it was that you did. So I had hoped to do a bit of homework, but we're going to do it live. So it's not actually homework, but we're going to look at the idea of having a celebration. So there's only 3 of us here in this room right now. And what I'm going to ask is us to think about having a celebration in about 10 years' time that celebrates the success that you've had in your career. And so imagine a situation where they're gathering, they've gathered a bunch of people together and they want to celebrate your accomplishments. Now, when I did this for myself, it was interesting, but I had an opportunity to do it actually with an organization. It was actually a church. And the idea was, if somebody was going to celebrate the accomplishments of that organization, in this case, a church, in 10 or 15 years, what would they say about it? And so that's the idea behind it. And so we're going to celebrate you. So question for us here in this room is, if you were having a celebration, where would you have it? Where would you want it to be had? And who would be the first speaker who would speak about you and your accomplishments? I don't know, Tamala, are you willing to think about this and perhaps offer up an idea? Somebody celebrating you and your accomplishments?
Sorry, I have a bit of background noise with my kid here. I think I definitely wanted to be at a destination somewhere at the beach. Say that. So maybe where you are. I don't know if there's a beach where you are in Mexico, but it would kind of be a big event. And maybe the first speaker would be my husband. Yeah.
Your husband.
Yes.
Okay.
Hopefully he has nice things to say about me and
That sounds
excited
lovely.
about my career.
I would love to be there. Okay, I'd love to be there on the beach. I'm about 4 or 5 kilometers from the beach right now, but anyway, I am here in Mexico, and it is a lovely location. So I can imagine that. So that allows us to start to picture this celebration. So I can see people gathered down on the beach. I can imagine the beach here, and you and your husband and others there. And so your husband, the master of ceremonies of this celebration, has invited your husband to get up and say something to celebrate the accomplishments you've had in your life to date. So what do you imagine that he might say? Or what would you hope that he might say?
He might talk about how he would be proud that I've overcome some setbacks in my career and have still progressed and made a lot of made a big difference in my career in public health academia. And yeah, and how he saw that despite some of the challenges, many that were out of my hands, like COVID and some of the issues that came up with that, I still persisted. I would like that he would say that. And hopefully
That's
it's true.
lovely. That's lovely. I mean, that paints a really wonderful picture of your sort of stick to itness and willing to pursue things even when it's difficult. So yeah, those are lovely characteristics. So thank you for sharing that. I've got another. Well, that was what was said. Another question is: imagine somewhere. I mean, I'm not sure in your current job whether you find yourself in a leadership position, but imagine some time down the road where you might be a leader in an organization, and some of the people that you were leading would be there. What would you hope? What would you imagine that they would say about you as a leader in an organization? So you might want to think about that for a moment, but the idea would be that you're there, you found yourself in a leadership position. You can imagine leaders that you worked with, you know, good examples of the kinds of behavior they've had, and you know bad examples as well. So just a question for you. Imagine, and when we've got somebody who is one of the people who you have been leading, gets a chance to stand up at the beach there and say something about you. So what would you like them to say about you as a leader?
Maybe that I led with kindness and was encouraging them and encouragement to them to work better, or to be better stewards of their work, if that makes sense.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Thank you. So this is sort of now we're doing a very abbreviated version of the total exercise that we do. And if you're interested in following through on doing this kind of work, because clearly you're able, you've just done some of it. And if you're interested in following through on this kind of work, the PDF file that Sue sent out is a full workbook that looks at this in greater depth. And these are the kinds of things that would look at. And the idea behind it is kind of creative imagination, imagining the future so that you can help create that future. So you've described yourself from the perspective of your husband, and you can pick out other people who would be important in your life and in different roles that you might be in, and then have them, you know, imagine what you would want them to say. And so you get that if that you go back to that image I presented, as you see yourself, and then there's how others see you. So this is projecting how you would imagine others would see you. And then that becomes helps you develop your own personal mission statement. So it's a process of self-discovery. Included in it, in the workbook, is the idea that you should identify the various roles that you have. So we have roles in the family, we have roles in our work, and we have roles in the community. Now, some people in doing their personal mission statement, they really are sort of focused on their professional career. But the approach that I've been using is looking at it holistically, so that that way you have work-life balance issues that are managed, and along the lines you've described. You said, well, my husband was happy with me and how I dealt with the difficulties during COVID and the challenges that were presented, et cetera. And then imagining other people, what they would say under other circumstances. So it's family, work, and community. And we often forget that our role in community can be part of it. And so these things then become something that integrate into your ultimate mission. And that's the idea behind it. And so Sue and I talked about this some time ago. I guess it was over a year ago. We talked about there aren't any heroes anymore. People don't think of heroes in the same way that maybe when I was younger, there were various heroes you pointed to and said, although whenever I've done this with individuals, they've been able to come up with people that they would consider a hero, and a hero in their life, or somehow they were inspired by these individuals. And they may be people who are like Michelle Obama comes up often. Mother Teresa comes up. I use Gandhi. Others have used other characters or individuals in history who could be a role model, or it could be your father, your husband, your mother, a favorite aunt or uncle, and so on. And there could be others. And in my case as well, there was a professional in the world of training and development that I met in Atlanta, Georgia, years and years and years ago. And he became kind of a role model for me. And so I kind of looked at him as kind of a heroic individual in my life. And so as we were kind of doing there, you imagine a celebration of your accomplishments. And we kind of did that in just a little mini scale. And in doing that, you get these ideas out. And so after that, after imagining the celebration of your accomplishment, is then to sit down and identify your key values and your passions. And because that's important to it all. And so the sequence here of going through the celebration, in looking at the celebration and looking at, say, 5 or 6 people who might stand up and speak at some celebration 10 years from now about you and what you have accomplished in the various roles that you have. Inside that content, you will find, it'll point to what you find valuable, what your values are, where your passions are. And then plus there may be things that you missed when you're looking at that. So then you might go back and revise what people might say at the celebration of your accomplishments based on some values that you had forgotten about. And then identifying your skills and abilities. This is something we often do, Sue and I, when we're working with folks. So this is kind of looking at those and adding them into the matrix of information. And then this one here is a very interesting one. Imagine a key accomplishments for your life. And this question here has, for the people who have done this exercise with me, said was the most startling for them in terms of revealing. And as if you had unlimited resources, what would you be doing? So, Tamala, are you prepared? Would you be willing to say, if you had unlimited resources, do you know what you'd be doing right now? And that resource could be money, it could be time, it could be whatever. No constraints. All constraints are removed. You have unlimited ability. So if you had that, what would you be doing right now?
Wow, I would. I really love the beach, so I really think that I would be I would be hanging out at the beach.
I'm living your life. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
Basically, I would be you.
That's interesting. Yeah, actually, it's not a surprise, really. A lot of people would do that. But I had other people have had different things. And then because we haven't done the whole exercise, you might find there's other things as you're doing it that you say, oh, well, that's something I would really love to be doing right now. And so anyway, that's it. And for some people who are not married, sometimes marriage comes up in the picture and so on, and whether you want to have children and all the rest of that. So these things come out in doing the exercises. And so here's some samples of some personal mission statements that I was able to drag up from the internet. Some of them are. And so here's one mission statement: is to live a principle-centered life committed to continuous intellectual, spiritual, and physical development, with a devotion to creating value in each role I fill in a family, friend, community, and organizational setting. I strive to embrace learning opportunities, approach life experience with a spirit of enthusiasm and passion, and create a lasting positive impact in all activities of life. So as you can see, this is a big statement. It's very empowering. And so this individual, Michelle Harmer, she could easily use this personal mission statement from time to time, and sort of, she's given an opportunity. She said, well, is this going to help me accomplish my mission? And then if the answer is no, well, then should you be doing it? Or if the individual really wants to do it, then maybe the personal mission statement isn't complete enough, and maybe it's missing something. So there's an idea. Here's another one. This is from a minister, meaning a pastor, a religious minister. This was his personal mission statement. I inspire others with my actions, but never forget the power of my voice. I laugh at myself and help others experience joy. I give before I receive. I do not fear mistakes. I create a welcoming home. I tend my marriage. I am open to people and opportunities. I act on my passions. I read and observe. I honor my commitments. Now, it's interesting because Sue and I often, when we're working with young professionals and trying to get them to work on CVs and all the rest of it, and we're always saying, okay, well, you can't have these aspirational ideas in your CV, because it's not really, it's not the kind of thing that's going to actually help you get the job, but rather we want to see what your accomplishments actually are. Here, it's absolutely part of this kind of work, because it's about your passion, it's about what you find important in your life. And so this is for me back in 1994. This is the one I created for myself, and I keep testing myself on this quite regularly to see whether it still suits. And so it's I will be remembered for being sensitive to the needs of others, and as someone who will come to the aid of someone or some organization in need. When I apply myself to an activity, important accomplishments are achieved with lasting outcomes. I am bold and take appropriate risks where the outcomes are highly valued. I worry enough before taking action so that I don't have to worry after. As a family and community leader, I will be remembered for my ability to draw out the best in people and help individuals overcome weaknesses to grow into mutually interdependent people. And every once in a while, I've, like I said, tested myself against that. And for me, this mission statement that I created as I was leaving the military, because there was a reason why I wanted to do it then, because I left the military in 1995, and I felt that I wanted to do something differently and to pay back in part for the wonderful 22-year career I had. And so this document was one that I created. Sometimes I've talked to people about the mission statement within the context of Ikigai, and not everybody knows what this is. But when we were working with another colleague at the Multipod organization, this diagram is presented, and it's kind of it's a Japanese concept that shows how our lives and the various values of ourselves can be represented in this thing. And there's a Japanese idea that when everything is in balance, then you have this, the Ikigai is in balance, and your life is going to be better as a result. And so it's a matter of getting what you love, what the world needs, what you can be paid for, and what you're good at in harmony. And then when they are, then they're there. And so here you have issues of passion, profession, vocation, and then mission, which is the idea of what the world needs and what you love to do kind of intersect here, and that's the mission. And so in part, that's where I started using this with young professionals, and sometimes I use this drawing to help explain the idea. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. It's a process, and when I work with individuals to do this, we usually take a couple of sessions, usually 3 or 4 sessions to do it. When I did it myself, I just did it using the book, the Stephen Covey book, and I did it on my own. And I think I spent probably about a week off and on doing that kind of thing. So. Any questions, either from you, Tamala, or perhaps Sue? Maybe you have some. Any questions?
Ron, do people end up with a document that has a certain format to it? I mean, I know you wrote out the mission statement, and I admit I didn't open the workbook just now to check and see if this is in here, but I'm just trying to give people a sense of what ends up being useful work, because I assume some of the getting to the mission statement you showed us for you and others is also, you know, the write long first, you know, Sue's method, put everything down and then start chopping away. So I thought maybe you could talk about the process as well and what it looks like going through it.
Okay, well, actually, I guess I covered that a little too quickly. And that's a good question. Thank you, Sue. So actually, these are segments within the workbook. And so you basically go through these steps inside the workbook, and you created a long document, essentially, and you just keep adding to the document with these things. So identifying your various roles, describing who's a hero. I mean, this is pretty simple stuff. And each section has a little question associated with it. And so maybe it'd be worthwhile. I do have a copy of the document in front of me. So why don't I just actually share that? So here's the document that Sue attached. It may not have this multi-pod logo on it. And so there's a bit of a descriptive thing and things that we've just covered. And then it's actually a procedure. And so there's various steps. So an exercise in creative imagination. And that includes identifying your roles, identifying your heroes, imagining the celebration of accomplishments. And so in the example we were doing here, Tamala, you imagined this celebration happening on the beach and so on. And so this would then be described. We would have 5, 6, 7 people who would speak, and they would all have something unique to contribute. They would be talking about different aspects of your life, including the roles that you might have. And then for the purposes of this workbook, you would discuss it with the mentor. Then you get into your passions and values. What do you enjoy doing, etc. And each one of these things is a section of a document that you would build. And then finally, at the very end would be the personal mission statement. And so when you look at it from the perspective of these examples, here is what a personal mission statement can ultimately look like. It's a fairly short paragraph, or some people actually, according to what Stephen Covey said, some people, when they do it, do a drawing, you know, depending on their nature of their creativity. And so they'll do a drawing which for them expresses who they are. And so this one here is quite good as a bulleted list of who they are. And this is this background and all the rest of it came from the individual. So they selected all that. And then in my case, it was just a simple piece of text. Plus, actually for me as well, I added in each role that I had significant role, and then created a small statement attached to each role. I found that was useful. Does that help? Okay, thank you. Thank you for the question. Any other questions? Okay, if no more questions, well, we have an opportunity to ask any questions, including those that are not related to the subject. So, Tamala, do you have any questions you would like to ask of Sue or I on any professional matter?
No major questions that I can think of right now. I mainly joined this call today because of the topic of the personal mission statement, because I thought I should revisit it because I did read the Stephen Covey book, and maybe that was way back when I first started working with Sue as well, when she was looking at my CV as a doctoral student. And like you mentioned, our mission changes over time. So I was like, you know what, I wrote it down somewhere. Hopefully it's online because I have no idea what paper it would be on right now, but I hope I can find it. And I thank you for breaking down the different components of it again, so I can, kind of see what, 5 years out of my doctoral program and just, kind of a career change a bit. I need to revisit, and life changes too. so just revisiting that and starting afresh.
Yeah, well, that's a good point, is this idea of there's times in our lives when things will change, like when there's major career shifts. Getting married will change the complexity of your life, having a child, or being an empty nester. Like my wife and I are empty nesters, and when that happened, that changed the way we see ourselves. Now, I wrote my personal mission statement not as an empty nester, but I believe that it still covered what I wanted it to cover. But yes, these are the kinds of things, and it's kind of interesting. A colleague of ours, a fellow named Fernando, he said he finally gets a chance to work in where where his passion was and where his ultimate mission was going to be, long after he finally retired from professional life, and he's now doing the kinds of things that he would like to be, would want to have been doing earlier in his life. And so I think what happened is because he was retiring from professional life, that new mission was presented to him, and so he pursued it, and he's built a small business around it. And it's a not-for-profit or non-profit business that he has, and he offers services for free related to mentoring young professionals. So there's an example. Any other thoughts or questions? Ideas?
Not at this time for me.
Okay, thank you.
Ron, I'm just going to make a comment here for those that get the recording. I will send out the PDF again, Ron, from with the recording link. And if someone happens to be watching this recording and it's not through a link in an email where the PDF is attached, you're welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn and or email me and let me know that you want it, and I'll put you in touch with Ron.
Yeah, and that's one thing I would like to say is I would be willing to work with, if anyone wants to work on using the document that I've created. If anyone wants to work on it with me, I can set aside some time, and we could do private consultation on these things. So that's just an opportunity. It's part of being part of Sue Mentors and MentorTime. That's
very generous, Ron. Thank you, as always.
So Sue, can I ask you to close the meeting?
This is so funny. Our positions are reversed, aren't they?
Yeah.
Ron, this is interesting. And each time I listen to you do this and actively participate, I did make my notes, and I remember doing it last time, and then I never did anything with it. So I'm not saying second time's a charm, but I might get closer to the goal of doing it. But what it reminded me about was the reason that you can identify it is exactly what Tamala just told us about. She did it 5 years ago when I first met her, however long ago. She said, I had that. I know I need to revisit it. I'm certainly, I've gotten to a different stage and a different career path, sort of. I'm putting words in her mouth, but that there is a reason to take this in-depth look. And I would encourage you all watching this recording at the end, of course, if you didn't take the time to go through it and jot down a few notes for yourself, in the sections that are outlined and also in what Ron did live with our willing Tamala giving us her feedback on those questions. Go ahead and do it. That alone will begin to provide some insight and seat for you this important topic. So thanks very much. We have mentor time scheduled now for March on the 20th and 27th, and you'll be getting reminders about that. So thanks very much, everybody, for attending. And thank you, Ron, for doing this.
Yes, thank you very much.